Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another episode of our podcast. Today we have an incredible guest, Kathleen. Kathleen, just want you to know that really excited to interview you. We had an excellent conversation last week with Gina, and so the fact that she had every relationship that she has, she could have picked anybody, and she felt like you are the person that we should have this conversation with. So Kathleen, thank you so much. How's your day going so far?
It's going good.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you know the premise of this podcast, but essentially we're just trying to get to know people's story, get to know people's journey, and rather than us deciding who the guests are, we thought it'd be awesome to let the person that we interview to choose our guests. So, no pressure on your end, but just want you to know that you were chosen by Gina to be the person. So we're honored to be able to have you on there. But so yeah, we'll just start out kind of with a left field question, Gina. But yeah, what's your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time.
Yep.
Well, there's um, two or three that come to mind.
Okay.
One is A League of Their Own.
Okay. I haven't seen
One
that.
is Mr. Holland's Opus.
Okay.
And I think, I don't know, Bagger Vance, I think.
Oh, is that the one with Will Smith? Is that the one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. It's is it a golfing movie? I forgot what it
It's
is.
a golfing movie, and
Okay.
I really liked not so much the golfing part of it,
Yep.
but the whole where Will Smith was trying to get the other guy to get him
Matt
more
Damon.
confident.
Is it Matt Damon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I was 0 for 3 on all the films you said, and then that one I was like, you know what? I remember my mom having that in our house for some reason. But
Well,
that's
it's
awesome.
funny because the guy I worked, one of my bosses, was a pro with Jack Nicklaus's
Hmm. Yep.
system, and he said he could not watch that movie because the golf strokes were all wrong.
Rough. Oh, dude. I've
And I'm
heard
like,
this
yeah,
with
but it's such a great story. Just don't, just turn it on, turn your back to the screen and just listen to it.
yeah.
But I couldn't, he never did.
There is something to be said about like you also typically people that are like experts in their industry when they see something in film, right? Quite often it's incorrect. One of the movies that actually I know Interstellar was one of those movies where the critic, like the actual scientist, came out and said this is actually pretty accurate. But most part, whenever there's a film done and there's somebody that actually does it in real life, they're quite often. Have you seen this like in books too, where it's like you read a book, then you go watch the movie, and you're like you become like the biggest critic because you're like that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not who it is. Have you seen anything like that before?
Yeah, a lot of movies will really change things around from the book.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, well, we're excited to unfold a little bit about you. But love to hear just kind of what was your upbringing like? What's your story there?
Um, it was pretty, I guess, status quo. I grew up, went to public schools, a small town of about 4,000. Uh, it was a very small town. We had three traffic lights. We had three hardware stores because it was a farming community. A couple grocery stores, a couple drug stores, a pizza place, a couple ice cream places during the summer, and that was about it.
Yep. Yep. Did you like play any sports or anything when you were growing up? Hobbies? Did you have any of that?
Actually, um, I almost flunked PE.
Like PE.
Yeah,
Okay, let's hear
because
this story.
I hated the class.
Yeah.
So, I had it first thing in the morning. So I would miss the bus on purpose and have to walk the mile and a half to school so that I would get there too late to change clothes for gym class.
Yeah. So you would do something active to miss out on something active. That's what
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say.
Well, but that was in the 70s,
Okay.
and I guess walking didn't count, not like it does now.
I was about to say, I remember for me, we used to, because you have to like, so we used to have to run the mile quite often. And then once you got done with the mile was kind of when they let you do like different activities. And then I swear it was like right when I graduated high school, suddenly walking became an actual class.
Huh.
So it was even after me. I don't know if my generation is the right word, but I remember it was when I graduated high school is when I had friends that were still a couple years back that were like, "Yeah, I'm in a walking class now," and I'm like, "I don't understand. How can you be in a class all you do is walking?" Yeah. So anyway, so
Well,
uh,
the irony of it is, um, in 2002, I was trying to lose weight,
mm,
and some friends talked me into. I was riding my bike a lot and doing uh, water aerobics at the gym
okay.
or at the Y. And some friends said, "Well, you're in the water already and you're riding your bike. Why don't you do a triathlon?"
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, hold up. We just jumped big time. We
Yeah,
just went
big
from
time.
skipping
I said,
PE
"Well, the
class.
biking's great. I guess I could dog paddle the swim,
Okay, okay,
and but I don't run." And they said, "You don't have to run. You can walk the run." So I did, and I was hooked.
okay. So I felt like we just went from the '70s to early 2000s. It sounds like that's when you started the triathlon.
Yeah,
Um,
that's when I started doing triathlon.
okay, was it sounded like when you said you were trying to lose weight, was there a moment of period where physical health just wasn't where you wanted it to be? Is that what
It
happened?
was absolutely about my physical health. I was
Okay,
like 45 years old.
okay,
My knees, I could not walk up or down a flight of stairs
okay.
because of pain in my knees. And I did not want to do knee surgery.
Could I ask what caused the pain?
Um, I I never had it checked out then, but I suspect they were already bone on bone.
Okay,
And I was overweight, very sedentary. And I decided, I also had doctors telling me my cholesterol and blood pressure weren't good. My dad had a heart attack he died from a heart attack when he was 56.
okay.
And they said if I didn't lose weight, I'd have diabetes by the time I turned 50.
What age was this when they told you this?
I was 46
Okay, okay,
or 45,
okay,
actually. And so I decided to join Weight Watchers and see if I could do something about getting myself back into somewhat more healthy.
yeah, the,
And for activity, I decided I'd always loved riding my bike.
yeah,
And I'd been actually a very active cyclist in my late 20s.
okay,
So I decided I would do that. That's also supposed to be, if you do it right, that's supposed to be good for your knees.
okay.
Um,
When you say if you do it right, is it quite often that people damage their knees because they're not doing it properly? Is that a common thing?
yeah, if you're riding a bike, if you stay in lower gears
Yeah.
and pedal at a higher rate of speed, that's the best thing you can do for your knees. What a lot of people do is they go in a higher gear and really have to, they call it mashing the pedals.
Yeah,
And
you're
that's
exerting a
the
lot.
worst thing you can do for your knees.
Well, that's interesting you said that. I know when I ride bikes, I always go on the highest gear because I think that's what a man is all about, right? The highest gear. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So,
It's
so
all about working smarter, not harder.
harder. Yeah, yeah.
And it's actually harder to maintain a higher cadence.
So is it so I know eventually you get to the triathlon. I'm trying to go a couple years back. So when it comes to your physical health, it sounds like this is a big part of your life. Was there something, was it the doctors telling you, hey, you're gonna have diabetes if you don't make some changes? Or was there like what led to you getting to that point where eventually you're having a conversation with the doctor? Where he's like,
Uh,
hey, things have to change.
I think the thing that really convinced me I needed to change, I was at a trade show because I was a leader in the pet grooming industry. And so I was a
Oh.
speaker at a trade show.
Yeah. Did you say pet grooming industry?
Yes.
Like dogs or
Yeah, like dogs, cats.
okay.
And at this particular trade show, we were waiting and waiting and waiting for the elevator. And I was only going one floor. And there had been a time when I was younger, I was a candy striper in the hospital, and I
Hmm.
used to do 4 floors and race the elevator
That's not
because it was
easy.
faster to do the stairs for four
Yeah.
floors than it was to wait on the elevator.
Were you just like pushing the floor? Were you hitting 4 floors and then getting out the elevator, running up, and see if you could beat it?
I was, instead of waiting on the elevator, I
Yeah.
just went on up the stairs.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, keep going.
So, I, I was convinced that it was faster to run up or down the stairs then. Well,
Yep.
now in 2002, I couldn't even go up and down one flight of stairs
Wow. So
because
what
my knees
happened?
hurt so bad.
Okay, so were you having knee problems back then when you were going up the stairs? What led to that? Because it sounds like something happened between then and 2002 that you go from running up 4 floors to not being able to run it. What was going on then?
Well, in the 70s, I was a lot younger.
Okay.
I was a lot lighter. Um, and I was more physically active. By 2002, I was doing the most physical activity was when I was grooming dogs. That
Yeah.
was physical.
Okay.
But when I wasn't working, I was sitting.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
And, they say sitting is the new smoking.
Well,
That just sitting around all the time is as bad for you as smoking.
wow.
Or it
Because
can
your
be
body,
anyway.
yeah, because your body is not being active. It's not breaking down anything. It's just kind of sitting in there, right?
Right.
Um, I know you said that you're the profession that you chose, dog grooming. How did you come to that profession? Like what led to that?
Um, I had dogs when I was in high school,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed spending time with my dogs and training my dogs and so forth. If training had been a viable career in the 70s, I might have just been a trainer.
What kind of dogs did you have?
I had my first dog was an Irish setter, and I trained him through all the levels of obedience and quite a few tricks. And I mean, I used to spend hours. He was an outdoor dog, but I
Okay.
used to spend hours with him every day.
Yep. And then what made you turn that into a profession? Especially because you said like, uh, I know you said that there was other things you could have done that were more valuable. You would have gone down that path, but the grooming kind of opened up the door. How did that open up for you?
Because at that time, you could work as a dog groomer and make a reasonable living. And I didn't care as much for the fluffing and all that, but
Yeah.
I did see it as a way I could have a career and spend my time with the dogs. And as I became more proficient at it, um, I really started to enjoy it.
Were you I know you said this the town that you grew up in population of only 4,000. Did you open up that business in that area or did you end up moving to another location and that's where the business started?
Well, actually, I started out while I was in high school.
Oh wow.
The local vet let
Okay.
me groom in his office. And he said, you worry about scheduling the appointments. You just meet the people here and you can groom the dogs when I'm not having office hours, which he had office hours a couple hours at lunchtime and a couple hours in the evening. He was more a large animal vet.
Was that normal for people your age at the time to have a job or were you a little more proactive than your peers?
Well, being in Blanchester, we didn't have, yeah, I was like 16, 17 years old. We didn't have McDonald's where you could get a job.
Yep. Yep.
The nearest McDonald's was 15 miles away.
That's quite a distance.
So, yeah, so we didn't even eat at McDonald's because if we went out to eat, if we were going to drive 15 miles, we were going to go to like a sit down restaurant.
Yeah. Yep. Is that during the
So,
time when McDonald's used to be like what they say like for $1 you can get a burger and a Coca-Cola and fries and still get some change back?
yeah,
Like,
that
my
was
mom tells
then.
me that's what my mom always tells me whenever we go get McDonald's. She always brings up the fact that I remember when I could spend $1 and get some change back, right? Now $1
Well,
doesn't even get you
and
small fries.
even when I later worked at McDonald's in college,
Yeah.
you could get a Big Mac, fries, and a drink for less than $5.
Well, okay.
And
Yeah,
now you
that's
can't even get the Big Mac for that.
oh, dude. One of my favorite orders. My brother Dana. He got me on this. Do you ever remember a meal called the Big and Tasty? Do you remember that? Did you ever
Yeah.
hear that one? So Big and Tasty was our favorite burger, and for some reason, McDonald's stopped doing it like 10 years ago, and it's like more than that, probably like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they stopped doing it, and it's like till this day, I want my Big and Tasty. I want them to bring it back, but every year they bring back the McRibs, and I'm like, oh, so frustrating. But those are the good old days. Those are the good old days. But so, it's interesting. You got a job at a young age. What was the like with both your parents in home? What was that relationship like?
Yeah, both my parents. My dad worked for a printing company and he started that right after high school and worked there till the day he died.
Mm,
And my mom was a nurse. So she had to go probably about 15 miles to the nearest hospitals where she worked. Um, and other times she worked a little farther away. But so she had to travel to be a nurse.
yep, yep. It sounds like the way that you kind of expressed it sounds like you had a good relationship with them, maybe.
Yeah, it was good.
It was- yeah, you know what's up, what's up. Yeah, it was good. It's like got their challenges, got their uphills, but okay. So you started working for the person making appointments, and then once you started making appointments, at what point did you
No,
start
I
stepping
was
into?
actually grooming the dogs.
Oh, you were grooming the dogs. Okay,
Yes. I got
okay.
a classified ad in the local paper because my dad was the editor of the paper.
Oh yeah,
So they
good
ran my
connection.
ad for me.
Yep.
And people would call me and I'd say, well, meet me at Doc Gardner's at 1 o'clock. That's when his office hours end.
Was that a
And,
high demand at the time?
um, well, no, farming community.
Okay.
Most of the dogs were outdoor dogs. And so they wouldn't, if they got anything, they got maybe shaved in the spring.
Okay.
But there were a few like people's pets, and those were what I was grooming. Not as many back
Yeah.
then because um, a lot of the small breeds that get groomed real regularly weren't even recognized by AKC yet at that time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. When you were telling me your population, and I was thinking, okay, this sounds like a small town. Seems like it would be a farming, and so as a business owner, my mind immediately goes into, okay, is that high potential for income? Because whenever I think of dog grooming, I think of like the suburbs. I think of downtown Hollywood, right? You got those.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. You think of something at that magnitude.
But for a kid in high school just trying to make a little extra money,
Yep, yep.
it was
So this is
fine.
only. Yep, yep. So did you end up? Where did you go from there?
From there, I actually went to college,
Where'd you go?
Bowling Green University in Ohio,
Okay, okay.
and I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do. What I really wanted to do was work with dogs, but there wasn't a college degree for that.
Yeah,
And I probably should have taken business courses towards the goal of opening my own grooming shop,
yep.
but I didn't. And I burned through several majors,
Okay.
kept
What were those majors?
changing majors
Yep,
until finally I decided I had probably could have gotten enough hours to graduate in by the end of that school year, but it would have taken me at least 2 years to get enough of a major.
yep,
And I said, the only reason I'm grooming right now is so I can have the student loans to live off of
yeah, yeah.
until my grooming picks up enough. And I
Oh,
did
I
have
see
a
what you're
lot
saying.
more grooming business in Bowling Green. And I decided that was a silly reason to stay in school. So I quit.
Yeah. Do you still feel that way today? Like, hey, I made the right decision on that?
I think for that time frame, yes.
Yeah.
Um, because I did. I really wanted to just groom dogs. And from there, I ended up getting my first full time grooming position.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Do you do you so I know when it comes to for people when they look at pets, I know people feel differently about them, right? So like, yeah, this person over here, I have a friend of mine, this close friend of mine, like when it comes to animals, he thinks they do not belong in the house, right? His thing is they belong out in nature. Don't have them in your home. That's his philosophy, right? And then you have this other side where it's like, dogs, in this case, I'll just talk about dogs, right? It's like you see the way that the police use dogs, right? And it's very incredible, right? Or the military, right? You have service dogs. What about dogs for you was attractive? Like, why did that become something they?
I really liked the connection I felt with my dog. And it was an escape because, yeah, I had an okay relationship with my parents, but there was a lot of, I ended up leaving home with a lot of feeling that no matter what I did, it would never be good enough
Mhm.
and things like that. But my dog never made me feel like that.
Yep, yep,
Um, so I liked that. I did, I really liked spending time with him and just training. And my first dog was an Irish setter, and he was an incredible dog. He was a field bred Irish setter. So he was actually too smart for me, being a first time owner, but we had a
I,
great time together.
I had to look up the dog because those are beautiful dogs. Do you so you said something a little bit ago about not feeling good enough. I feel like this is something that's very common with sons or daughters, right? It's one of those it's since the beginning of time, right? People just not feeling like they're good enough.
Hmm.
Um when you talked about, kind of what your parents do, I think it's incredibly impressive that your father owned a printing company. And I think it's
Oh
very
no, he didn't
impressive.
own it.
Oh,
He
oh, so
worked
he worked
for
there.
them.
Okay, okay.
He
Well,
worked for them. He did
did he do like the
layout and
editing and things
design
like
in
that?
the days
Okay.
when it was literally cut and paste.
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
I used to go in and watch him cut out the things with the X-Acto knife and do his rubber cement and paste it, and then
Well,
no, that's not good, and he'd move it somewhere else.
but and then you said your mom was a nurse. Even just as I hear you describe it, I still think those are two pretty impressive careers. Um, was it
Well, they
like
are.
was it so sometimes when it comes to people not feeling good enough, right? It could be a lack of affirmation, or it could be, certain statements were said to them, and that kind of puts them on a trajectory that I'm not good enough. For you,
Well,
was it? Yeah, go ahead.
my mom was always, you could do anything you want if you just apply yourself. And it always felt like she didn't think I would.
I see.
And everybody in the world would tell me how proud mom was of me, but I don't remember her saying,
Hmm.
wow, I'm really proud of what you did today. Except one time when my dog and I won first place at the state fair in the
Oh,
4-H.
come on. What
So
happened there? What was
um,
the competition for?
it was obedience training, and
Okay.
we were at the open level obedience, which is healing. On the recall, they have to stop halfway, or you give them a signal and they have to stop and lay down and then come the rest of the way. They have retrieving and retrieving over a jump and then another jump. And that particular day, he was on fire. We were the first one to do that class in the ring that day. So
Yeah,
when the audience saw him go over the jump, they burst out in applause.
that's
And that
wild.
just knocked him up a notch.
How
And
did you? Yeah, go ahead.
and so we did really, really well that day and ended up winning the class.
Nice work on that. How did that make you feel when your mom? It sounds like you said. Did she verbally affirm that to you? Like, hey, I'm very, very proud of you, or?
Yeah, she actually did that day. And in fact, they went and found a locket with a 4-leaf clover and
Hmm,
had them engrave Kathleen and Duffy state champions
that's
on the
beautiful. Do you
back.
still have it? Do you still have it?
I, I've moved so many times, I have no idea whatever happened to it.
Yeah, yeah. But it's where it's supposed to be, right in your heart.
Yeah,
You have that
exactly.
embedded. It's. I quite often on. So I have two little girls. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And growing up for me was some like I didn't get to hear very many things like I'm very proud of you, right? I had an incredible mom, but that wasn't something that was very present. And I find myself trying to do that. Like I find myself probably overly complimenting my daughters. Like I'm overly like I'm trying to overcompensate. Did you find yourself in a similar path to like relationships that you have with people that you're around where you find yourself making sure that they know that you're proud of them? Make it, do you find yourself in that position at all?
Um, I try to be in that position, but
Yeah,
I don't know that I always
yeah,
succeed, but I try to be more encouraging and more positive.
yep, yep. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, so you got the dog. So you're doing dog grooming. I mean, so sorry, you went to college, went to dog grooming. What happened in the next stage of your life? Is this when the triathlon started to kick in, or did something happen in between there as well?
So, um, the dog grooming, I started doing dog grooming competitions,
Okay.
and I actually was in the early years of Groom Team USA, which was basically the Olympics of dog grooming. Um, I made the team 5 times.
Did you say the Olympics?
Yeah, would they kind of, yeah, it wasn't.
Oh,
That's what
elaborate
we
on this.
compared
This
it
is
to.
good. Yeah, yeah.
So the top 6 groomers in the country, based on how many points they
Did you
accrued
say the country?
in competition. Yes.
Kathleen, I need you to know you're opening up my mind to a world I didn't know that existed. Like when I watch like the Super Bowl and stuff like that, or like before Super Bowl weekend, like you have that weekend. That's where I've seen like dogs competitions. Um, well, let's introduce Kenny. What's good, Kenny? How you doing?
Not bad, bro. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. This is Kathleen. Kathleen, this is my co-host Kenny.
Your late
Hey,
Um,
Kenny.
co-host, Kenny. How you doing,
my
Kathleen?
late co-host. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Kenny, just to kind of keep you up to date, Kathleen is talking about she started a dog grooming business when she and she's talking about how at one point she the equivalent of the Olympics, they had the country had 6 different. Do you want to elaborate on this a little bit more, Kathleen?
Okay, so over the course of a year in grooming competitions, you get points for all your placements.
All right.
And the 6 people with the top number of points um, get picked, and anywhere from 4 to 6 of them travel to another country to compete in international grooming competition.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool.
And I made the team 5 times. The fifth time was when they went to only traveling every other year. So
S-
I went to Italy twice.
Wow.
I went to Holland, and my fourth time competing with the team was in the U.S. in New Jersey.
Wow. So, how long have you been doing this?
Um, well, I never really had. Once I left home, I never really had my own business, but I worked for other grooming businesses. Probably 40 years, 40, 50 years.
40, 50 years. 40, 50 years.
I started grooming in 1973.
So in that case, so how many dogs have you had over the course of your life?
Um, I've lost count. Actually, of dogs I've owned, probably 20.
Wow. Wow.
I'm
And
I can't. Okay.
the kind of connection, the kind of I would say the kind of training you have to go into this is it's I would imagine first of all you have to have a good connection, a good bond with the dog. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It definitely helps.
But you can do it without the bone.
What?
You can train the dog without having that kind of close bond, that kind of close connection.
For training, you really do need to have a good bond. For grooming, you still bond with the dogs somewhat, but you only spend a couple hours with them at a time, at
Okay,
any
now
given time.
maybe I might be misunderstanding this. So grooming and training are different. So grooming has more to do with the physical appearance, correct?
Yeah, grooming is washing and brushing and cutting their hair, um, stuff like that.
And
I
there's go on, please, go on, Josh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So two thoughts that I have. One is um To do anything for, did you say 40, 45 years? Was that 30? What was the year?
Yeah, it was about 40 to 45 years
I
that I
mean,
was
like,
actively grooming.
I, I, I don't, it's rare that you meet anybody that has done a certain skill for that amount of years.
Yeah.
That alone is impressive to me. Um, that just blows my mind. 40, 45 years of doing that. Um, do, is that something you're still actively doing, or is that something that you're no longer doing anymore?
I retired from grooming about 5 years ago.
Okay,
Wow.
okay. So I know you said in the 2000, was it 2002 when the triathlon started?
Yeah, in 2002, I
So
was
walk me through
grooming.
what happened from, because you started doing dog grooming in the 70s.
Right.
What happened that got you to the point where triathlon became a thing in your life?
Well, at that time, I was at the grooming competitions. I was starting to be a speaker and a judge. And so my mentor said, you really shouldn't be competing anymore. You don't have anything to prove. And so I, at the
What do they mean
time,
by you didn't have anything to prove?
I'd
Why would
already
somebody
been there,
say that?
done that as far as
Okay, okay,
competing. It'd be like some of these quarterbacks that keep going and going and going. They're
yep,
winning and winning, and then they don't retire in time
Yeah.
and they start losing.
yep,
Well, that's kind of where I was. It was if you win, people will say it's because of who you are, not necessarily that you deserve to win. If you
yep.
don't win, they're going to wonder why you didn't win. And so continuing to compete was probably not the smartest thing I could do.
Wow.
Yep.
But I that left a big hole com- for the competitive side of me.
Would you say that whole was? I know sometimes with some of these athletes, right? One of there's a person. A lot of athletes find themselves in this situation where they have like an identity crisis. Like, if I'm not doing this, then what's the point of this, right? And some of these athletes will see it from a distance, and they'll like be proactive and get involved in different media early on. Would you say that you were having like an identity crisis?
Um, Possibly, but what I discovered triathlon, and that just kind of filled that competitive um, urge that I had. And the thing I loved about triathlon is that everybody was supportive and encouraging. It didn't matter how good or bad you were. My first triathlon, I had the second from last slowest swim time and 10th from last slowest run time because I walked it.
Okay, wait, hold up. I'm gonna have to stop you there for a second. What what makes up a triathlon, and what is like? I know you said swimming. What does swimming look like? How many miles are you swimming? How many?
Okay, so
Walk us through that.
my first triathlon was a sprint triathlon. It's a half-mile swim in a lake, and then about a 12-mile bike and a 5K run.
You lost me at the swimming. That's when I'd have tapped out. That's it. I'd have tapped out right at the swimming.
I
Okay,
actually on
so
that first triathlon, I hadn't really done much actual swim. I actually, when I signed up for the triathlon, I also signed up for swim lessons
So that was your first time. Like, was that like
because up to then I could dog paddle, but
you weren't
hey,
formally trained?
Kathleen, I gotta. I feel like there's some stepping stones that I'm missing. You go from middle school, high school, skipping PE because you didn't like to do what you did. So you used to show up late to class So you didn't have to change outfits. So you didn't have to be physically, you didn't have to engage in PE. Then we're fast forwarding 30 years down the road. You see triathlon and you say, yes?
Well, no, I actually, how that started was
Yeah.
I'd always been an avid cyclist. So I started bicycling to help my knees. I started doing water aerobics to help my knees. And then I was going to Weight Watchers at the time. So they had their message boards. I mean, this was before Facebook in 2002. So on the Weight Watcher message boards, I found a group. One of their boards was Fitness Challenge, where you could talk to people and maybe compare things, activities you were doing, and so forth.
Okay.
And the thing is, at that time, Weight Watchers was also had started giving you activity points that you
Hmm.
could earn points for however much activity you did, and you could exchange those points for more food.
What?
If you did, say, an hour's worth of
Yeah.
activity, you get 1 or 2 points. They also, the food, each each food that you ate was a certain number of points, and you could have, say, 21 points a day. If you got, if you earned 2 more points for activities, that was 2 more points you could have for food.
When you say food, is it like free dinner kind of thing? Like that kind of food?
Yeah, or just an extra snack, or
So based on like the Weight Watchers point system. So
yeah, it was the Weight Watchers point system.
so you
That makes
could
sense.
so maybe you had a certain amounts that you could eat, like maybe have one sandwich per day, or for example, and that sandwich costs what, maybe 30, 20 points, and at the end of the day you could have 2 extra points for like maybe a soda or something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like that.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
So
saying.
I
I see
could
what you're saying.
eat more things because I was exercising.
Right.
That makes sense. I thought it was like a point system where it's like you gain 25 points and they're gonna send you a free meal, but rather it just allows you to expand what you can eat for that
For the
day.
day, yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
That makes a lot. Okay. I mean, I was like, dude,
I'm about to join Weight Watchers.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Well, see,
finances
and
are
the
tight
thing
right now.
is, with triathlon,
Yeah.
you're doing 3 different exercises,
Yep.
and but if you do the same thing day in day out, your body gets accustomed to it, and it's not as effective for your weight loss.
So when
Where
you
if
looked at
you
the
bike one day and you run one day and you swim another day, your body never knows what's
What's
coming up
ahead?
next. So you get full benefit of each of those activities.
So when you look at so when you looked at triathlon the first time, obviously the biking probably excited you because you already were doing that. You enjoy it. Which one was the one that you looked at and think, okay, that might be a trouble for me. That might be
The
problematic for
run.
me. The run. And how
I
far is the
would
run?
not run because of my knees.
And how far is the run?
It was a 5K.
Okay.
But they all said, but you can walk the run. I'm like, okay, well, I can walk. I mean, at that point, I lived in Dallas. I didn't have a car, so I used my bike or the public transportation and then walked to fill in. Like the if I took the bus to work, I ended up walking about the last mile.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, I came in late, so I don't know.
Yep.
The Do you have, I know you've done lots of, um, you've done the grooming thing for a long time. You said about 40 to 45 years. You've won a fair bit of championships and stuff like that. Do you have things that's, uh, is that one of the would you say that that is the thing that you're most proud of, the grooming, or would you say that this particular this the triathlons that you've been participating in?
Good question.
I feel like I had my biggest accomplishments were in grooming. With triathlon, I'm what they call back of the pack. And actually, 2 months after I did that first triathlon, um, and I was that even in that one, I was definitely back of the pack for the swim and the run. I was about the top. I was maybe a third of the way back on the bike. I did that much better. It was really cool because all these women that had passed me on the swim, I got on the bike and I'm just blowing past them. Especially when I
It's like,
got to the hill and some of these women were walking their bikes up the hill. And
yeah.
I just geared down and kept going.
I was looking at the statistic, what percentage of people have completed a triathlon? It says 0.01% of people have completed a triathlon. So even though, you're describing it, I'm in the back of the pack, you got to understand the percentage of people that haven't even attempted. So when you were doing your first triathlon, what was the emotions that was coming over to you, and what was it like when you completed your first triathlon?
I was really exciting. I really enjoyed the biking, especially, and even the walking the run. It's like, oh, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. And finishing, and then you got to go. They had a whole spread of snacks when you finish the race. It was a huge feeling of accomplishment.
Very nice.
Um, and yeah, I did. I took every bit of that. And the people in triathlon are so encouraging to newcomers.
Mm.
And in the course of that first triathlon, it was a Danskin triathlon, which Danskin produced women's tries for 23 years, ending, I think, in 2012.
Mm.
And the lady that was the Danskin spokesperson was Sally Edwards. She was a top, she was an Ironman record holder. And she always, for the Danskin triathlon, every single race, she was the final finisher. So she would start off, she'd get all the people in the water swimming. They do it in groups of 100. And when the last wave left, she would swim and stay with whoever came out of the water last.
I see.
And then she stayed with them um, on the bike. If that person passed somebody, she'd stay with the new last person.
This is her, right? Is this who you're talking
Yeah,
about,
that's
Sally Edwards?
her.
Okay, okay. I had to look it up. Triathlon and training and racing, but okay, okay.
So I got to actually see her in action with that last person. And I volunteered a couple months before my triathlon I did.
Hmm.
And I volunteered on the bike course. And I got to watch her talk this lady through making it up the final hill into the back into transition. And just watching how much she cared about this person she didn't even know.
Yeah.
And how much she cared about helping women find a way to become active. I was just so impressed with it. And I actually left that first triathlon wanting to be part of that, of encouraging people to become more active.
No, so she was basically just there to help other people.
What?
She was basically there to help other people. She had already accomplished her own
Exactly.
achievements. She doesn't. She was just there to to be an encouragement to others.
Exactly. Well, I mean, she had lots of achievements anyway.
Yeah.
But in the dance triathlon, she was there to encourage newcomers.
When you first completed your triathlon, right? So you have that moment where you have a difficult task ahead of you. You accomplished the task. What did that say about who you were? Did you feel like you learned something about yourself at the end of that first triathlon?
I got a better idea for how much tenacity I had, that I was going to stick it out until I finished it. And yeah, that's kind of who I was, that whatever I was trying to do, I would work it and go from whatever angle,
Yeah.
do whatever it took to get there.
Kathleen, do you have any children?
No, never married, never had kids.
No kidding.
I
So
have my dogs.
how many how many dogs do you have at this moment?
At this moment, I don't have a dog. I had a service dog, and she died about a month ago.
I'm
Mm,
sorry to hear that.
sorry about that.
And we're trying to decide if we even want to get another one. So,
May I ask why you never married or had kids?
I never met any man that I felt I could live with for the rest of my life. And um, I was into doing my dog stuff, going to shows and doing grooming competitions. And so,
Of all the places you visited for the competition,
what?
of all the places you visited for the competition, where was your favorite?
Um, well, I really liked visiting Italy, and we stayed both times I went. We stayed an extra week and did some sightseeing. Um, but when the team went to Holland, I took my bike, and so for the week after the competition, I rode my bike around Holland, which was really cool because they are very bike friendly.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, there's more cyclists than there are cars.
I've heard about. Yeah,
Well,
So that I really enjoyed.
that's brilliant.
one of the things that you said a little bit ago, you were saying the word tenacity, right? You know, when I hear you say you did something for 45 years, um, and I don't want this to come off wrong or anything, but like it makes me understand why you were able to accomplish a triathlon. Like to be able to stick in to say I'm going to do something to get it done, that's incredible. I wanted to tag into kind of what Kenny was asking earlier. Um, did you feel like sometimes did you feel like being single? Did you feel like you quickly were like okay with it, or was that a challenging road for you before you came to okay, this is how it's going to be for me?
For what?
Like you were saying that you never found a husband, right? You never that wasn't a
Oh no,
relationship
I was okay with that.
because you were immersed in your career.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. So did you? How many triathlons did you end up
Well,
doing?
here's the twist.
Oh,
2 months after that first triathlon,
oh,
I always rode, or I commuted to work by bike. Except when I was training for the triathlon, the coach I got said, no, you have to not ride your bike to work because you need to focus on the swim and the run because those are your weak areas. And if you train well for those and you ride your bike every day, so you're going to take the risk of overtraining. So once I was done with that triathlon, I could go back to riding my bike to work every day. And about 2 months after the triathlon, I was riding my bike to work and got hit by a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Shut up.
What?
And he admitted to going 45 to 50 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone.
So was it a catastrophic hit? Was it bad?
It was very catastrophic. They told my family if I survived, I would be a quadriplegic.
Were you unconscious? Were you? I mean, how?
I was in a coma for
Whoa,
about
whoa.
3 to 4 weeks. And because of the brain injury, when I started coming out of the coma, I was psychotic, so they put me back in the coma to let my brain heal some more.
Wait, well, first of all, I didn't know you could put somebody back into coma. I've never heard that
I was a
before.
medically
I didn't know
induced
that. Yeah.
or
Oh,
drug
okay.
induced coma.
Whoa. So s- that's I don't even have a word to describe what that was. How long did that process take before you gain conscious back and kind of rebuilding your life? And what was the outcome of it? Like, what was I
Okay,
know they said you might be paraplegic.
so they my injuries at the time were a brain bleed, the 3 spinal fractures, including cervical fracture, which would make me a quad, and a um, fracture in the lower lumbar area, an aortic aneurysm, and I have fractures in my hip and my shoulder on the left side. So they couldn't treat the aneurysm because it was opposite what they would do to treat the brain bleed. They couldn't treat the brain bleed because that would jeopardize the aneurysm. So they just kind of basically put me in a halo, which is an apparatus that goes around your head and sits on your shoulders to keep your neck from moving, and watched me for about a week until I
And,
stabilized
and
enough.
you were unconscious the whole time when this was happening,
But
correct?
I was unconscious, so
When you woke up, you mentioned that you woke up the first time and you were still not ready to be woken up. So when you woke up the second time, how did it feel? Did it feel like time had passed, or did it feel like, hey,
Mhm.
this just happened yesterday?
well, I remember different things during the coma. People talking to me, people saying things. I mean, one of the things I remember is one of the physician's assistants said, "This is the doctor that repaired your broken neck." And I'm like, "No, I don't have a broken neck. If I had a broken neck, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you."
Interesting.
But I was in the coma.
Okay, but
What?
you
So
but you did you see yourself as standing and
in my
sitting and
mind, I was
active?
standing there talking to him.
Very interesting.
Um,
Wow.
and then as far as how waking up, it's taken me a long time to figure out how to describe it, but it was kind of like a dolphin. They come up for air, they go back and swim for a distance and come back up for air. That's what the waking up was like. I would come up for a minute and go back under.
Yeah.
And over time, the times that I came up for air lasted longer,
Thank God the times you
and
went under.
they became more often until I was awake.
How
During
long?
all this time, my
How long were
mom,
you? How long did it take for you to? Oh, actually, go ahead. You were talking about something right before. Go ahead.
during all this time that I was in the coma and trying to come out of it, my mom had told me what had happened, told me all about the accident and all this. So I kind of, when I finally was really aware, I kind of knew from what mom had been telling me that I was paralyzed. And it was like, well, but I'm still here. there must be a reason that I'm
Mhm.
still here. There must be something I'm supposed to do. And I don't know.
How is your mobility now? Do you still
Yeah,
feel the pains? Do you still feel the possibilities of?
Well, the beauty of spinal cord injury
you don't
is
feel?
it's nerve damage, and in some cases, there's no feeling,
That's what I thought. Yep.
or I do have some neuropathy in my feet and my hands, and sometimes that feels pinchy, but I don't really have a lot of pain. I haven't had a lot of pain, except when my knees went bad again.
But you
Uh,
can you walk around? Can you?
yeah, I was about to
I
ask.
can walk. About this happened in the end of September. The middle
End
of
of September, as in like what year? Like just a little recently, or like
2003,
okay,
September
okay, way back. Okay, okay,
2003. By
okay.
the following January, I was getting return because the swelling in my neck, the swelling in the spinal cord in my neck had gone down. So I was starting to get movement back. And then one day they discovered I could I had functional movement in my legs. And the physical therapist was totally blown away by that. Because she had been thinking I was a quad and I was always going to be a quad. And when she saw me moving my legs intentionally, um, she said, "Okay, I want to try something, but you have to promise you won't get discouraged." I'm like, "Okay." She says, she took me into the parallel bars and um, helped me stand for the first time.
Hmm.
How was that?
And that was like, wow. I mean,
So
that
when she noticed you moving, did you notice you were moving? Your leg?
actually what it was don't tell the insurance company, but they denied a power wheelchair. And that was the best thing they could have done. Because I said, I can't afford one. It's not practical. It won't work in my mom's house. We don't have a way to transport it. It doesn't make sense to get one. And the therapist had wanted the power chair because of weakness in my shoulder,
Mhm.
where my shoulder had been fractured. And so, knowing that that was one of her concerns, well, she said, "Okay, well, let's try a manual chair." And in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, Lindsay's worried about me being able to push a manual chair. And I am too, kind of. But I felt like my legs might. I thought, if they leave the footrest off, I can use my legs to kind of propel the chair too. And when she saw me do that, she was like,
Hmm.
"Whoa, wait a minute. You're a quad. How are you moving your legs?" And that's when she decided to see if I could stand. So we went in and I stood. And over the next few days, I started doing weight shifts and learning to take steps.
Hmm.
And I left that rehab hospital walking with a walker.
And how long was that time period altogether?
I was 8 weeks at Baylor Hospital in Dallas while they were doing surgeries to repair the spine. And then I was in rehab for another 3 months before I went home. And
So
home was back to my mom's.
okay, so what was life? I mean, I want to ask the obvious, like you complete a triathlon, right? And this tragedy happens. You're told that you're going to be I can never say it right.
Quadriplegic.
Quadriplegic.
Quadriplegic, thank you. You're going to find this out, right? You're overcoming things that are, I mean, one would even ask the question, right? It's like somebody above is looking out after you. Sounds like there was a miracle that happened in your life. Did you find yourself, did it take time? Because right now you seem very upbeat and optimistic, right? I was, even as you're telling your story, I saw you chuckle a little bit. Were you that way right off the bat, or did that take some time to overcome to be where you are right now?
One of the things that happened through this is
Hmm.
I can look back and see different things that happened when I was living in Dallas
Okay.
before the accident that prepared me for it. And one of those things was my mentor in the grooming industry taught me how to become more positive. She also
Mm,
helped me with my feelings of not feeling good enough. But she pointed out that, yeah, bad things are going to happen. But if you can find a way to reframe it, then and have a more positive outlook. Number one, if you're more positive, you're going to draw more positivity to you. If you're negative, then you're drawing the negative in. So um, that was the first thing. And if you're more positive, so she taught me to be more positive, to say, instead of saying, I can't do this, I learned going through rehab. Okay, yeah, I can't get up and walk around, but I can sit up better than I did last week. I can sit in the chair longer than I did last week. And once I started getting some walking, the other thing that played into this is having done the triathlon. The big part of of doing triathlon is training for it. So every day I go out and do a hour workout to prepare for the triathlon. Now, rehab was my hour workout. Instead of something I had to endure, rehab became my chance to practice at getting better, my chance to exercise. So, coming out of the coma, I was more positive and upbeat. Um, but that was because I'd learned that in those few couple years before.
I think it's beautiful to hear you, for you to be able to connect that the things of your past built you up to where you are today. Well, not today, but at that time to come up that way. Um, Quite often, when we have a reverse look at our life, quite often we start to see that there's a lot of building blocks that got us to where we are. Sometimes people think, "Oh, I made it here all by myself. I did this in isolation," right? But rather it's again. So for me, I'm a spiritual person, and so for me, I think God does a lot of things right to incorporate things to get us to where we are. And that silver lining, to hear how miraculous your story is, and for you to be able to see that silver lining through it all and say, I'm going to cling to that rather than clinging to all these negative things I could cling to. It's pretty impressive. Um,
So here's another thing that God
Please,
did.
come on.
From second grade on, I was blind. I had Coke
Whoa,
bottle
whoa.
glasses.
What?
I had, when, when they took me to the eye doctor first time, I was already at 2200. I wore glasses my entire life until about a year, 2 years before this crash. And I wanted to I wanted to get LASIK. Um, but I couldn't afford it. But I needed to do something because my eyes were being weird. It was like if I closed one eye, sitting at a traffic light, things disappeared. And my boss, I was working for a mobile grooming company, and my boss says, "Well, that makes me feel real good about having you drive my van." But anyway, so I went, I was looking into LASIK. They didn't approve me for financing, but I needed to have my eyes examined anyway. And the doctor came back in and he says, "You have cataracts." And I'm like, "Well, will you be able to still do LASIK?" And he said, "If I do the cataract surgery correctly, you won't need LASIK." And guess what? Insurance
Mm.
paid for cataract surgery. That was a year and a half before my bike wreck. In ICU, I couldn't talk. I had a trach, and so I couldn't talk. So all communication was blink once for yes, twice for no. How would I have gotten them to put my glasses on if I'd been wearing glasses at the time? So that was just a way that God provided so that I wouldn't have to deal with that.
That's very interesting.
Did you find yourself getting back on the bike, or is that something that you're not able to do anymore?
Actually, when I went into outpatient physical therapy and when my insurance was running out on that, the therapist said, "You should maybe see about getting a recumbent trike." So I
What is it
went
called? The
and,
recumbent truck?
huh?
What was it called?
They have recumbent bikes, but they also have three-wheel recumbents. So it's basically an adult tricycle. And initially the recumbent one is lower to the ground.
Okay, so something like this. Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
a lot like that. So I got one of those and I started riding it. And from the day one, even while I was still in ICU, I was determined I was going to do another triathlon.
You don't know how to give up, do you, Kathleen?
No, no,
You don't know how to read the warning signs and the
I'm very
you
hard
know.
headed. I actually, over the years, um, one of the first triathlons I tried to do, they said recumbents aren't allowed. So I ended up doing that as a relay, and I did the run leg.
What was the thought process that these bikes would not be allowed?
Um, they say that recumbents are give the rider an unfair
Get
advantage.
out. Get out. I've heard this with I've heard this with people that are that have like those prosthetic legs,
Uh,
right? And I remember there's somebody that was competing and they said the same thing with them. They're like, he has an unfair advantage. I'm like, I think if the guy had his choice, he probably wishes he had his legs and not the prosthetic legs. You know what I mean? Anyways, sorry. Maybe I'm getting on a personal tangent. Anyway, keep going.
but yeah, and in fact, and one I actually had written to the USAT, which is the governing body for triathlon, and asked about maybe they could consider a trike. Because at that time, there was the hand cycle, which is basically a recumbent trike, but the pedaling is all hand operated. And I could have used that except my shoulder.
Did they know your story?
I think at that time they didn't.
Okay. I'm like, I'm trying to think. I was a person that's blind, has no function in, you know, like you just went through this gruesome, and then now you're being told, okay, if they had no idea, okay, I can see from a different angle now. Anyway, keep
So
going.
yeah, it was about the first triathlon I did was about 2 years after the crash. And that I did as a relay. I did the run leg with my loft strand crutches, which are the ones that with the cuff that goes around your
Yeah,
arm.
yeah,
So, and
yeah, yeah,
did
yeah.
you finish that one?
I did a 5K with loft stand crutches, and my
You know what
run
those are,
time
Kenny?
Yeah,
was two
You know what
hours
those
and
are?
yeah.
47 minutes.
2 hours and 47 minutes to do 5K.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I told you I was tenacious. I wasn't going to. And actually, my friends got together. They formed two relay teams, and the runner on the other relay team stayed with me and pushed my wheelchair in case I needed a break. It was a concession to the race director and a concession to my doctor. And the wheelchair ended up being where all of our other friends finished their race, came back and joined us, and threw their gear in my wheelchair. So I
That's it.
walked the whole time. I didn't need a break. I didn't need to be pushed to the finish. Um,
What was your
That's impressive.
motivation? Like, uh, I know. So I know, like in the military, they talk about like I think there's a 40% rule, right? It's like just when you think you're done,
Push
right? The
yourself a
rule,
little
the
bit
saying
more.
is, yeah, you're only really 40% of what your body. Your body's always telling you to. I can't take it. Somebody doesn't eat lunch, suddenly they think they're dying, right? It's like, dude, you could go 20 days without eating. You got time. For you, what was the thing that was motivating you to just keep pressing forward as everything is telling you no? What is telling you yes?
I I just wanted it that bad. I just wanted to finish it, to do it. Um, and it wasn't until later, actually, after that race, we're all sitting around talking. We said, wonder how many people will be doing this race for the first time next year because they saw you out there.
Mm.
And I've had people actually walk up to me after a race and say, I saw you raced here last year and decided if you could, I could too. And this was my first.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Remember, I said I wanted to be part of what Sally Edwards was doing to
Absolutely.
encourage people to be more active?
Absolutely.
Suddenly occurred to me that's what I was doing.
Well done.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Well done.
So
Are you are you still connected with that community?
I I am one of the well actually I went through when I was doing all this, paratriathlon was just starting. They had when I first started, they had a division for physically challenged athletes. And there were 6 divisions based on the nature of your disability. Um, by 2011, an organization was started called Dare to Try, and they're based in Chicago. And it was Melissa Stockwell who was the first woman to lose a limb in active combat in Iraq. She had lost her leg and did triathlons, or through the process of recovering from her amputation, she started doing triathlons. And she and
Oh,
2 other people, Carrie Serrata and Dan Tunn, got together in Chicago and started this organization called Dare to Try to help disabled people be able to do triathlon. And I met them for the first time in 2013. And I actually went to some of their camps, and um, they're basically doing all the stuff that I kind of figured out for myself as I was going through.
That's
mm,
so. I would say
Okay.
now it's impressive to hear these and to hear your story. Um, I think that you know, had you not said, I would not know.
Hmm.
Um, so, have you written anything about this? Have you? Has there been? Have you ever? Is this? Have you told this story in other places as well?
I've told the story a lot. I
Okay.
mean, you just get me started and I go. Um, but I'm also working on trying to get an agent to get my book published.
Like an
So yeah,
autobiography or a fictional
a memoir.
a memoir?
So it's about the um doing that first try. It actually starts with a conversation at the elevator when I couldn't do the steps and realizing that I needed to do something about my weight, about my activity level. And goes through the first chapter goes through that first triathlon. And the second chapter starts with me in ICU.
Why did you write the memoir?
Um, well, partly because everybody that's heard me talk about it said you should write a book. So I did. I'm still kind of working on revisions um, and looking for an agent.
I don't know what it's like to write a book or anything like that or a memoir. Is there like a particular agent you're looking for, or is it just kind of like I'm just looking for anybody?
Um, well, I'm looking for one that will present my book and get me the best deal with the publisher.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So, and that's a whole process, and it definitely requires some tenacity.
Well, good thing you got enough. You got that. That's something
Yeah, I
we.
got that.
That's something that's very common to your story. Um, it's funny you said that, Kenny. My head went to film, and then my head also went to speaking, like at conventions or events. Have you had opportunities that
I
stuff?
have considered speaking, and
Yeah,
that's part of the plan. But someone told me years ago that in order to really get out and do speaking well, I needed to have a book.
really.
Now, the
I didn't know
book
that.
people are saying, um,
You need to go speak.
the book people are saying you should be out there speaking to build your
Exactly.
platform, build your audience so we can sell the book. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
kind of okay. So my plan is to do both. Once
that's how
I've
I
got
feel. Yeah, go ahead.
once I'm got the revisions done on the book while I'm trying to get an agent, I'm going to
Yeah,
start setting up to do public speaking also.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's
I'm
fair.
happy to hear that. I don't like that situation, saying, when you it's like when you're looking for a job, like an entry level job, and they
Yep.
say, you need like minimum five
Experience.
years experience. It's like I I'm
Yeah,
here
yeah.
because I
How do
don't
you
have an
think that?
experience.
No. Yeah.
But
No.
that's very nice to hear. I hope you find a publisher. I hope you find a good one. Um, and do you have any? What
Well,
kind of
once I
speaking
get
again?
the speaking going, if I have to, I could self-publish and have somebody sitting at the back of the room selling books.
Yep. 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 I think. I think one of the things that I've learned about. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we're talking about my generation, right? And like we are. There's a lot of things that we're struggling with. There's a lot of things that we're facing problematic wise. Um, But what's happening right now in our society is there's this uh, what is America, right? Are we this nation that is unappreciative of what they have, right? And we need to be more grateful for what's in front of us? Or are we this big bully that is taking advantage of things? And so there's this convoluted situation that's happening right now. And I think when I look at, I can speak for myself. When I look at my life right now, one of the things that that helps me center myself is when I can get a more clear picture of the reality, what's in front of me, and what my life could be. When I hear your story, when I hear you talk about the road that you went down, I mean, each one of us have our own journey that we went down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you hear somebody talk about losing their vision for a while, when you hear somebody talking about I completed triathlon and then shortly right after that, I'm in a situation where I may never be able to walk again or use any of my body, right? It's like that's scary when you hear someone say that I went to coma. I kept going back in and out, in and out, in and out. That and it's I mean, I think things like these stories are really important for people to hear, especially people in our generation, because I think there's a lot of things that are defeating them. That if people heard your story, I think they might have the encouragement that they need or the kick that they may need for them to be able to be like, you know what? I think what's in front of me may not be as problematic as I think that it is. Like I can
Exactly.
overcome this thing. So I'm excited to be able to for us to be able to post something like this because I think your story is something that I know our generation really needs to hear. Which is yes, things are hard. Yes, things are challenging, but they could be way more difficult than they are right now. You have more advantages in front of you. Like I'm hearing, as I heard you talk for the last hour, and a half, I normally don't have a problem asking people questions. I really don't. When I hear you talk, there's a part of me that just kind of wants to sit back and be like, I don't want to add any more because she has gone down her journey. She has gone down a road that is much. She's offering something to the plate that even I want to listen to, and I don't even want to. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to get at is like
Yeah, it
I want you
does.
to know that the story that the journey you went down. The whole time I'm waiting for you to be angry at the world. I'm waiting for you to be angry with God. I'm waiting for you to but you didn't do that through this whole journey, which is I think one of the things that's most impressive to me is you were able to hold on to that silver lining, the optimism.
Well, I mean, I did have my moments when
Of
I was
course,
like,
of course.
I'm so bored. I hate this. I want my life back,
You know,
but not a lot. And I think that a lot of that goes back to my friends showing me how to change it, how to reframe it.
who is your friend? What's her name? Just in
Her,
case.
her name was, her name is Pam Lauritsen, and she's a leader in the pet grooming industry. And I was working closely with her program to help educate the groomers coming up the ranks. And um, that she helped me with getting into being a judge and a speaker in the industry. Um, but she also helped me with some of these things of getting in my head and thinking that I wasn't good enough. And she said the only thing not good enough is you keep sabotaging yourself. And one of the things, like a
Was
really good
that tough?
example of
Was that
that,
tough for you to accept?
well, no, because she was kind of right. One of the times I went to compete in a grooming competition, and I was um, competing in a hand stripping division, which is where you pluck the hair and shape it instead of cutting it. And I left all my tools sitting on my grooming table in Dallas. Here I am in the ring in Newark, New Jersey, going, go get my stripping knives off the bed. And my assistant came back and she said, they aren't there. And here I am. I've left all my tools in Dallas. So I gave her my credit card. I said, go find Pam. Have Pam get you help you pick out the stripping knife I need for this class. And I managed to pull enough together that I could at least do the competition.
Yeah.
But that was just an example of sabotaging myself. So,
That's understandable. You know, I think it's good to have good friends who speak into your life, and I will say that it's been, hearing the story, hearing what you've been through. A friend of mine put it like this: um, there's something about suffering that makes us more human. We never wish it upon ourselves. We never wish it upon others. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen to every single one of us to certain degrees.
Mhm.
But its purpose is to make us something that is, hopefully, at the end of the day, beautiful. And the fact that, as Josh mentioned, you're not clenching your fists, cursing, throwing yourself a wee bit of a pity party shows a certain amount of beauty and a certain amount
Mhm.
of strength. So I'm happy to hear your story.
thank you.
Great. What I think there's gonna be a lot of people that are listening to this that have gone through a lot of hardships. What would be if you could speak to them, right? If you had some few minutes to say something to her, what would you say to them?
Um, I think one of the big things is just trusting that things will work out, that God's timing is not always our timing, and everything will come together when it's supposed to. Um, if you can reframe your mindset, instead of saying, oh, I can't do this, change that to what I can do that I couldn't do a couple weeks ago, or what I'm able to do. Um, look at, try to, you have to acknowledge the things that are the bad things that are there. I mean, you have to acknowledge them. Otherwise, you're just very silly. You're like a
Yeah.
Pollyanna. But
Yeah.
once you acknowledge them, don't dwell on them. Look for something positive and dwell on that. Focus on the things that are right rather than the things that are wrong. And in doing that, if you're focusing on positive things, more positive things will come your way. Um, and the other big thing for me has been my snarky, smart aleck sense of humor. And I can make a joke about just about anything.
Do you find people around you uncomfortable when you make fun of yourself? I just imagine you make fun of your mobility in front of people and they don't know if they should laugh or is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, or just about anything. Um, my dad used to have a lot of, he had the driest wit
Hmm.
and he just reel it off, just really dry deadpan. And a lot of people missed it. But I do this kind of the same kind of things. And if you're not laughing about the situation, then you're, I know it's just, it's another way to stay positive by being able to joke about it.
Yes, it is.
Um,
Yeah.
and actually, when I was coming out of the coma, when I started cracking jokes, that's when my family knew things were going to be okay.
So
Beautiful.
there's a story of I think if I remember properly, I'm sure the internet's correct me if I'm wrong. The story of Ronald Reagan when he was shot, and he's being rushed off to the to the to the operating table. He's got the oxygen on. They're about to put him under to get this bullet out of him or whatever the hell they're gonna do. He takes off the mask. He looks at them. He says, "None of you are Democrats, right?"
Have you heard about his second speech?
No,
Have
I
you heard
did.
about the speech?
No.
So I think it was soon after he ends up giving another speech, and a sound was made that sounded like a gun, and he responds with, "You missed."
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's
One of the other
you're,
things
yeah.
that one of the other what my first thoughts is are you familiar with the song by Twyla Paris, God is in Control? The first verse starts off, this is no time for fear. This is a time for strength and determination. And right after 9/11, I was
Mm.
working in my grooming van and listening to the radio, and I was listening to a Christian station in Dallas. And right after they described watching the second plane hit, the very next thing they did is they played that song.
God is in control.
God is in control. And it was so appropriate then, but 2 years later, when I'm waking up from a coma, it fit there too. And you just have to remember if God's in control. Um, and then there's the verse that things work together for good.
Hmm.
All things work together for good. And I can look at that and I can look at, I was wanting to move back home after 9/11, but I didn't know what I would do for a job. I didn't know where I would live. And now, after this crash, I get brought back home to Cincinnati. And I ended up meeting my life partner. She was my rehab nurse. And we've been together for 20 years, 21. Um,
So
I
you do
want
have
to,
somebody.
Yeah.
yeah, I do now.
What
I
the
had to just about die to
Kathleen?
meet her,
She
but
Kathleen, you just led us on for an hour.
she just
Go ahead, Katie.
she just
well, I mean, I didn't back when
yeah, I was
I
about
did
to
that first
propose.
triathlon.
Kathleen, that just came out of left field. I was like, wait. So you do have a partner. Okay, so you do have a partner.
I do have a partner now.
Okay, hold on, guys. Kathleen, I have to go, but it was a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully we'll be chatting again.
Sounds good.
Take care.
I enjoyed meeting you guys too.
Um,
All right.
Kathleen, I
I'll see you
am
later,
very.
Josh.
Yep, I'll talk to you later. Kathleen, sorry, he has work, and so he has to jump off to his next thing. But Kathleen, to say you're an inspiring person is it's an understatement. Really, it's an understatement. Um, I'm thinking through, every time the each person refers me to the next person to talk to, right? I'm always thinking, okay, what about this person? Why is it this person? And I am without a doubt grateful that Gina connected me with you, that Kenny, and the fact that Kenny got to hear the story, right? Like, this is, um, it moves us. It moves us. And your whole life is clearly that God has been active in your life. Um, I really, really hope that your memoir gets grabbed by somebody and it gets turned into something. I hope that this podcast, as we post it, I hope it connects with people and I hope people are able to hear the stories. And I hope that it's a publisher that listens to this and it's like, I want to get to know this person. Um, I I can't imagine how many people would have tapped out, and the fact that your tenacity pushed you through, and the fact that you're able to share the story with us. I just want you to know I'm thankful to hear your story. Like, genuinely, I'm thankful to hear your story. Um, so thank you. Like, seriously, thank you for your story. Do you have any last minute thing you would like to communicate to our listeners? Anything?
Just keep keep hanging on. Know that things are going to get better. Know that it will work out. Some of the things that I like is when it feels like things are falling apart, what if they're really falling into place?
Again, back to your perspective, right? You think it's one way, but if you change your perspective, it's something else. Um, so, with that, Kathleen, I just, again, it's an honor to have you on this podcast. I'm excited to be able to publish this in hopes that people hear this. Just so you know, you do your job next is to connect us with the next person. So, just anybody in your circle of influence that you know that you're like, hey, I think you should hear this person's story. We are more than excited. Again, it's an honor to have you be one of the people that we connected. So thank you for your time, Kathleen. Like, seriously, thank you for your time, and I look forward to having, because I think down the road maybe you'll get the memoir going and we can do another round of this. But I just want to say thank you for your time so far.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Again, like I said, it's we are honored to have you on here. So thank you so much. Hope you have a blessed day, and I'll talk with you later.
Okay. You too. Thanks.
No problem.